In the early 1960s, America was a divided nation. Not just politically, not just culturally, but physically. Different schools, different restaurants, different buses, all separated by the color of a person's skin. And in the middle of this reality stood one man with an idea so simple, it sounded impossible. A dream. Not a dream of power, not a dream of revenge, but a dream of equality. This is the story of Martin Luther King Jr., a man who believed that courage could defeat hatred, and that a dream could reshape a country.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta. At first glance, his childhood looked stable. His father was a respected Baptist minister, his family valued education, and their church community was strong. But outside that community, America looked very different. Across the South, Jim Crow laws enforced racial segregation. Black Americans were denied the same schools, the same opportunities, and even the same public spaces as white Americans. Young Martin experienced this reality early. One of his childhood friends, who was white, suddenly stopped playing with him. Why? Because the boy's parents said they couldn't be friends anymore. It was Martin's first real encounter with racial segregation, and it confused him deeply. His father told him something he would remember forever. "You are as good as anyone." But the world kept telling him the opposite. That tension between what the world was and what it should be began shaping the mind of a future leader. Many life missions begin with a moment of unfairness. Instead of accepting injustice, King questioned it, and that question would eventually ignite a movement. Martin Luther King Jr. was not only passionate, he was exceptionally intelligent. At just 15 years old, he entered Morehouse College. There, he studied sociology and began seriously questioning the systems around him. But the biggest shift happened later. At Crozer Theological Seminary, King discovered the philosophy of nonviolent resistance. Then, while studying at Boston University, he encountered the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi had led India to independence through nonviolent protest. This idea fascinated King. Could love be stronger than hatred? Could peaceful protest defeat violent oppression? Many people doubted it, but King believed it was not only possible, it was the only way forward. Around this time, he married Coretta Scott King, who would become his lifelong partner in the movement. King was preparing for a quiet life as a pastor, but history had other plans. Ideas changed the world long before actions do. King didn't start with protests. He started with thinking deeply about solutions. In 1955, something happened in Montgomery that would change American history. A seamstress named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a segregated bus. She was arrested. But her quiet act of resistance sparked outrage across the Black community. Local leaders organized a boycott of the city buses. They needed someone young, intelligent, and respected to lead the movement. They chose Martin Luther King Jr. At just 26 years old, he suddenly found himself leading a citywide protest. The plan was simple. If buses were segregated, Black residents simply wouldn't ride them. And so they walked. To work, to school, to the grocery store, for 381 days. The boycott crippled the bus system financially, but it also made King a national figure. His home was bombed, he received death threats, yet his response shocked everyone. Instead of anger, he preached nonviolence. Eventually, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled bus segregation unconstitutional. The boycott had succeeded. Real change requires sacrifice. The people of Montgomery proved that unity and persistence can dismantle powerful systems. After Montgomery, the movement spread rapidly. King helped form the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Its mission was clear: coordinate nonviolent protests across the South. Sit-ins, marches, boycotts. Each protest exposed the harsh realities of segregation. In Birmingham, peaceful protesters, including children, were attacked with police dogs and fire hoses. The images shocked the world. Television brought the brutality of segregation directly into American living rooms. Suddenly, ignoring the problem became impossible. King was arrested many times. While imprisoned in Birmingham, he wrote one of the most powerful documents in American history, Letter from Birmingham Jail. In it, he wrote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Those words echoed across the country. The civil rights movement was no longer regional, it had become national. Sometimes change happens when reality can no longer be hidden. Exposure creates accountability. August 28, 1963. More than 250,000 people gathered in Washington, D.C. for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It was one of the largest protests in American history. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, Martin Luther King Jr. delivered a speech that would define his legacy. Halfway through the speech, gospel singer Mahalia Jackson shouted from behind him, "Tell them about the dream." King looked up, and he began improvising. "I have a dream that one day America would live out the true meaning of its creed, that people would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Those words became one of the most powerful speeches in history, not because they were perfect, but because they captured hope. Words matter. When spoken with courage and truth, they can reshape how millions think. The movement began producing real change. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed segregation in public places. In 1965, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 protected African Americans' right to vote. That same year, King received the Nobel Peace Prize. He was just 35 years old. But the struggle was far from over. King began speaking out about poverty and the Vietnam War. Some allies turned against him. Threats increased. Then on April 4, 1968, while standing on a balcony in Memphis, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. He was only 39 years old. The nation mourned. But his message did not die, because movements built on truth don't disappear, they continue. Leadership often carries a heavy price, but courage creates a legacy that outlives fear. Martin Luther King Jr.'s story is not just about history, it's about possibility. He didn't begin with power. He didn't begin with political influence. He began with three things: a belief, a voice, and the courage to stand for what was right. His dream reminds us of something powerful. Change rarely begins with governments. It begins with people willing to imagine a better future and then work toward it, step by step, sometimes walking for 381 days, sometimes speaking truth when it's dangerous, sometimes believing in hope when the world says change is impossible. King once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But that arc doesn't bend by itself. People bend it. People with courage, people with conviction, people who refuse to stop dreaming. Martin Luther King Jr. proved that one voice can echo through generations. His dream didn't just challenge a nation, it challenged every one of us to ask a question: what kind of world are we helping create? Because history is not only written by great leaders, it is written by ordinary people who choose to stand for something greater than themselves. If this story inspired you, consider subscribing for more powerful stories from history, stories that remind us what courage, perseverance, and vision can achieve. And remember, thanks for watching.